You know, I'm often asked when I've been doing interviews for this movie. You know, who are some of the role models that you used for this movie? And I thought, well, Stephen was my main role model. Even though you look at guys like Waylon and Christopherson, and those guys certainly were as well. But here was this guy who was with me every day. Answering every question. You're like, how do you play that lick? Or like Bone was saying about the Sparklets thing. He said, when I'm driving all that way, I don't want to stop and take a piss on the side of the road. I'll carry a Sparklets bottle. Maybe when you start that scene, look up that sign, you have your Sparklets bottle. I said, yeah, let's definitely do that. I'd look at him and I'd say, what do you got around your neck? What is that? He says, oh, those are elk's teeth. I said, oh, well, can I use those? So those were. I said, let me use those. Those are kind of like little juju for me. To have that around my neck help me. And he was just there. He was just there. He was something. Stephen, old friend Bone and I, T-Bone and Stephen and I met 30 years ago. We were making Heaven's Gate. Christopherson assembled all his musicians for that movie. We had some wild jams on that one, I'll tell you.
And our production designer also worked on that as well.
And Valdemar, Valdemar Konchalowski, I want to say, how do you pronounce it?
Kalinowski,
Kalinowski, yeah. He was an actor in Heaven's Gate, and he was a wonderful production designer now.
So I stole people from Heaven's Gate, The Apostle, and Sling Blade, and put them all into one, and you get Crazy Heart.
Not bad touchstones to have. Talking about kind of the heritage of this film, Mr. Duvall, you watch this when you appear on screen, minds automatically go to Tender Mercies, the great film that you won the Oscar for. And another really touching story of a country singer trying to get by. And I was thinking, is there something about, do you think, country music that really just kind of goes straight to the heart, where if a rock biopic is a little bit more glitz and glamour, country music just seems a bit more heartfelt?
Yeah, I think it's taken over. When I was in the Army years ago, I listened to Lefty Frizzell and Carl Smith and Webb Pierce and all those guys, and Hank Williams. And the guy in the New York, the soldiers, the GIs in the New York hated the music. But when I got out of the Army, went to New York, and to be an actor in New York, there was a station there, and country music began to grow. And I think it represents the people between the two coasts, and sometimes people tend to look down on that, but it represents those people from the middle. And I was with a guy in a car service in New York, had a car service, and he said when he was in the Army, in the Deep South, he said all those guys in those little villages and hillbillies and little towns constantly outscore the New Yorkers on the aptitude tests. That's true. So the bright, interesting people out there, and this kind of music represents a lot of, it represents those people a lot. So, I think it's a well-respected form of music in America, and comes from England originally, Wales.
Yeah, Scots Irish.
Although Hank Williams used to sing on the corner with a black guy in Alabama. Yeah. Yeah.
There was a line in the movie that got cut out, but it was a cool line where Tommy, not Tommy Sweet, but Tony, the part that Ryan Bingham plays in the movie, the guy who plays with me in the bowling alley. And there was a scene where I come in all drunk and I play a very drunk version of kind of a bluesy version of the song "I Used to Be Somebody, Now I'm Somebody Else." And he says, "That's not country." And I said, "Country's just the white man's blues." Was that from the book, or was that T-Bone or Stephen?
No, that was when we grounded Bad Blake. We discussed that, and if you notice in the film, the only time Bad Blake's actually listening to music, he's waiting on Maggie's character to come up, and he's listening to a blues number from Lightning Hopkins. So when she interviews him in the first scene, and she says, "You were influenced by Robert Johnson's Son House," and he says, "Yeah, we all owe our existence to them Delta Boys." So really, his life was influenced by the blues, and he brought that into the country western tradition. and T-Bone then created this alternate universe.
Yeah, Chip Stroman wrote a song once called "You Don't Have to Be Black to Be Blue." Right, true. You know, it's like.
I'll say one other thing about that, which is where I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas, and they're the Kiowa Indians down there in Fort Worth, in Texas, and their music sounds just like bluegrass music. It's like hey, So we've got everything all segregated, but back when all this started, everybody listened to everybody. There weren't walls. Everybody, all the musicians were speaking that language. So anyway, I'll say.